Okay, so are you ready for my question now? This one is mine.
Yes.
I had Doreen's permission. My wife is Doreen. I had permission to ask this one. And this is a question not specifically about her situation, but about what this would be like when it happened. So when she was about 60 years ago, give or take a year, she and her two brothers were in the back seat of the car, a couple days short of Christmas. Her mom and dad were driving. They had a sudden head-on. Nobody saw it coming, and her parents were instantly killed. And so that was that. She was 6 years old. Her aunt and uncle adopted her. So her aunt and uncle have always raised her as mom, our mom and dad. My question is, and our question is, what is that like in a situation like that? Mom and dad are there. Suddenly they're not there. Do they come to themselves? Do angels come and pick them up at the same time and take them together? Do their own angels take them separately because they're two individuals? Do they look at each other and say, what just happened? Do they say, where are the kids? Tell me what would happen in a situation like that.
Well, anytime a believer passes, at the moment that happens, and they're not in their physical body, we'll go from there. Okay, they've stopped breathing. There's no life. Their spiritual body has stepped outside of their own body. Of course, they will see each other because they're both now in their spiritual bodies. Number one, they'll be young. They'll have no pain. The trauma of what just happened will not affect them. And I know that sounds wild to people, but you're not in your natural mind or in your flesh, so your flesh won't respond in that situation. The joy of the Lord would begin to pour over them, even that situation. They can see that their children are there, and the Holy Spirit has probably already told them it's going to be okay for them. They'll be raised in a godly home. They're going to be loved. So they would already have said that the moment they stepped out of their spiritual body. You begin to get revelation either from Jesus who's present or your angels who you will see for the first time. And of course, you would go together with both your angels taking each of you. So you'd have that journey from here all the way to heaven. You'd still be together. Awesome. There's no fear. There's no concerns like what's going to happen now, or our kid's going to be alone. That's already put in you, begins to fill you with waves of love and celebration. And the Father might start speaking to them in their spirit or their angels, like I said, saying it's going to be okay. Your children are going to be okay. Your mansions are ready. We're going to escort you home to heaven. That kind of thing is exactly what would happen. And of course, from that time, their parents would still be able to declare over their lives as they're growing up, and probably send blessings to them as they're growing up. Jesus would bring them blessings, probably from the parents in heaven. And so that's exactly what happens. What doesn't happen is doom and gloom, fear, agony, and suffering, like mental or emotional suffering, because that accident happened. If they don't die and they're injured and it's not good, maybe, that would be a whole different story. But the fact that they left, and I will say this sometimes, and I've seen in a situation where it actually happened, right before the moment of impact, their angel will actually come and grab their spiritual body out.
Really? Is that true? There was a movie that did that. True. That is, they will sometimes do that, but not all the time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, if it's just whatever their angel has decided at that moment, knowing that they won't live or survive it. I actually got to speak to somebody. I don't remember what state it was, but somebody came up and asked me a question after the meeting saying, our son had the most horrific accident and it was horrible. What happened to him? Did he feel any of that? And the Holy Spirit said, no, his angels took him out, took his spiritual body out, and just took him right to heaven because they didn't want him to have the impact of that torment on him. So they just grabbed him up out of the vehicle before the head-on happened. He never felt a thing.
Wow. So even though moments later he would be torment-free anyway, they didn't want him to experience even a moment of torment, even a second of torment.
Well, I'm sure the Father had told them, just get him. I'm sure the Father, for whatever reason, said, take him before the impact happened. So many times people don't realize they were just taken. They were just taken.
That's really good. Now, Kat, you said before a number of times that when your mansion in heaven is done, you're going home. So that's the only other question I want to ask about this kind of a situation. Like for Doreen's parents, is it likely that their parents' mansions were done, and so it was time? Did the Lord see ahead of time that this accident would happen, so he started building, they started building the mansion? How does that work? Were their mansions ready for them, having been pre-built before this accident?
I'm sure that I do know this. From the moment you're sent, from the moment he sends, the Father sends that little spirit of life, that's your little spiritual body, at the time of conception, he sends it in the hand of the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit comes in the mother's womb and knits and attaches that little spirit to that dot of flesh that's being formed. And at that moment, life begins in the womb. It's not when the baby's born. It's when that happens. When he said, I knit you together in your mother's womb, that's what he knit together. That was your spiritual little being to that dot of flesh. And from that time, they start working on your mansion.
Okay.
They'll start building it. The Father himself knows the very day you will come home. However that happens, he knows when you're going to come home. Most likely, they probably timed it for the time when they knew that would happen. They probably had their individual mansions probably right next to each other, already ready for them. Now, when children pass, that's different. They live with grandparents already in heaven or great grandparents in heaven. They usually will raise up those children until their parents get there. But for whatever reason, God had already had a plan of who would raise them, because he knew that they would be great in the kingdom. Doreen certainly is great in the kingdom and was going to have a powerful call in her life to be married to you. And so God had pre-planned that part of the lives. So I do know that's what happens. Many times when there's really even no reason for someone passing, their mansion is done in heaven for whatever reason, and I don't know all of them. Sometimes you have a special reward that will start something new in heaven, and he has given to you, that person who passed, a reward, and that's why they go to heaven and their mansion will be done.